All right, we've been talking about the wide receiver position. Hell, we were going to talk about the wide receiver position today. We kind of ripped up the rundown, though, as the Texans have made a trade. They have traded for Christian Kirk with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Seventh-round pick is what it took. I thought this was one of the best options. I didn't know that it would have to be a trade. I thought he was going to get released, which is probably why they got him for a seventh, but thought of all the wide receiver options we were talking about when it came to factoring in cost, and we talked about Tyler Lockett, Christian Kirk, and DK Metcalf yesterday. Between those three, I thought Kirk was the best option. He's 28 years old. His best football might not be behind him. The injury he's coming off of is a collarbone. You can directly point to kind of the performance of Trevor Lawrence and what's gone on in Jacksonville as to why maybe they would be ready to release him. And, oh, by the way, Brian Thomas is pretty good and they got him. So they feel pretty good about a young receiver, which meant that they would be willing to get rid of Christian Kirk, and the Texans swoop in. I'm assuming they would have had a chance regardless. They just didn't want to deal with it. They didn't want to mess with it. They bring Christian Kirk in and boom, we have a trade.
Yeah, Nick Caserio is not afraid to send off one of those late round picks to make sure that he gets the player, especially when Jacksonville kind of sends the player up, hey, we're releasing him. Well, we're not going to compete. Let's get him. He has $16-ish million non-guaranteed owed to him here in 2025. I have to assume there's some sort of contract adjustment or change up or something of that nature coming for Christian Kirk to not have him play at the $16 million that he's due. And I really like this move. We talked about it yesterday. Kirk was my favorite amongst the guys we were talking about when it comes to price that it costs to get the guy and what he brings to the table. He's primarily played in the slot for Jacksonville, but he can bump outside.
Which they need.
Yes. They need a slot presence, and they have not had one ever. One game of Kiki QT. So he primarily has played in the slot for Jacksonville. He can bump outside if he needs to. So it provides a little bit of flexibility for Nick Caley. They're not shoehorned into, oh, this guy can only succeed and win from the slot. No, he's won from the outside before as well. And every year, Landry, he's been a healthy football player. He's been a productive football player. I think that's another big element of Christian Kirk. Had a little bit of a slow start to the career, but then really got going there in Arizona. And again, when he's healthy, he's productive. Hasn't been healthy the past couple of seasons, but if he's healthy this upcoming season, I would expect him to be a productive football player for the Houston Texans.
Yeah, I like the move for sure. Seventh round pick. What
next
is that?
Year's seventh round pick.
Yeah, next year's seventh round pick. Not really much of a price, to say the very least. This tells me that this was going to happen anyways. It kind of feels Mixon like, where they just don't even want to fool with it. They don't even want to leave any possibility. And quite frankly, you were desperate at wide receiver. And how desperate were you was the question. And that was really the question that we were going to ask before we ripped up the rundown today. Was how desperate are they? Because you saw the price for DK Metcalf, and it was a first, a third, and a $30 million contract. No, thank you. That's like Tyreek Hill type stuff. I like DK Metcalf. I don't think he's what Tyreek Hill was when the Dolphins traded for him. I think he's fine. I think he's a fine player. I don't think he's that. Right. So that would have been overpaying, especially with where they are. I don't think this stops you from drafting a wide receiver. I don't even think this stops you from drafting a wide receiver in the first round. And I don't think this stops you from signing wide receivers. This is just a guy, and the thing that I like about him is that you mentioned him in the slot. I think CJ Stroud needs a slot option. I know Diggs was doing some work in the slot and stuff, but as far as just like that being your specialty, I think they really, really need intermediate passing threats, and he can also make the big play. I think this was the right move. I think it was the appropriate move, and I think it's a cross between. It seems like whenever we're talking about these wide receivers, it's this guy's washed, this guy's cooked, or this guy's going to get overpaid in free agency whenever we're talking about him. I said this yesterday. I think he's kind of a balance between the two, where he's already gotten his huge payday. He's not washed. Like, I don't think we can say he's washed yet.
No.
And I think it's just a perfect balance of the fear that comes into having to acquire wide receivers and being in the desperate situation that the Texans were in.
Yeah, I'm look, this is a player they should have chased in free agency. Should he got there? I love that they never let him get there. And I wonder if by not letting him, we saw the Rams paid one of their guys who barely has played for them, Tutu Atwell. They paid him $10 million. And so a productive player like Christian Kirk hits free agency, you get into a little bit of a bidding war, and he gets a little bit pricier than you expected, but Nick Caserio sends the 7th. And then Jacksonville, gets something small out of this for a guy that they were moving on from anyway. And now the Texans get to go to the negotiating table, adjust things, move things around from a contract perspective. I would expect it to be, not a cheap contract. He's not going to be like a couple $1 million, but he's not going to be wildly overpaid where we're like, what the hell are they doing? Which is exactly what I think the NFL world did when the Rams paid a part-time player $10 million earlier today. So
yeah.
I love that they never let him hit free agency and let there's teams with $90 million in cap space that need wide receivers. The Patriots are a great example. They got a gazillion dollars and they need wide receivers. All of a sudden the Patriots get in on a guy and the price of doing business goes up. So I love that they never let him hit free agency.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love that now it kind of makes them less desperate. And on the super chat, Wiggles Ming asks, does this close the door on re-signing Diggs? Maybe. I mean, the market could speak to Diggs, and there could be a situation where there's just no options for him. So maybe it's still a possibility, but it's not a dire thing. And quite frankly, I think you function as if that ship has kind of sailed. I've been out on Stefon Diggs the whole time. Does it completely close the door? I would say likely, but never say never, depending on what the market is going to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, Diggs primarily played inside for them last year, and now Christian Kirk is inside. So unless Diggs is moving back outside, you feel like he's the guy that's going to be successful on the outside opposite Nico Collins. But there's a financial commitment to Christian Kirk they're going to have to make. I mean, he's not going to make the $16 million, but he's not going to make nothing. So that's from a money standpoint. Like, how does Diggs fit in? We talked yesterday. The rumor and innuendo is there's going to be a robust market for Diggs. I mean, this doesn't keep you from doing it if you really want him back. I just don't know that they would really want him back, especially now that they have a slot guy in Christian Kirk.
Yeah, and he's going to be ready to go. It's a collarbone. It's not a lower body, so he's going to be good to go. He's going to be full go at camp. Jacob on the soup says the rare same division trade, good move. Yeah, these don't happen too often. Some bigger than others. I would say the biggest one of my lifetime would be Bledsoe to the Bills when Brady. McNabb also got traded from the Eagles to the Redskins back in the day. So you see it ever so often. You see it every once in a while. But in this instance, I mean, they were going to release the guy anyways. So maybe Houston was going to be where he ended up anyways. You just kind of take the 7th round pick, move on, figure it out.
Here we go.
And they're happy with the receiver they got.
Week 5 or whatever week they play the Jaguars, the first game of the season against Jacksonville, when they play them, got to be lined up at Christian Kirk's locker, going against your old team. How does this feel? You want to show them what they're missing out on.
Is he really going to do that? Who knows?
Hey, you used to play for Jacksonville. What do you think?
What is that, a Randy McIlroy?
Hey, Landry.
Zach Rose says, does this close the door on Cup? Followed up by MAB squad. Do you think the Texans should still go after Cup? Yeah, I would say this, like, of all things, I think this does probably close the door on Cup, especially when you factor in that the salaries are identical. I don't think you're putting like $40 million in slot wide receivers. And the other thing is, like, as far as the actual questions, like about the guys, I would say the injury questions are more valid with Cup than they are Kirk.
Sure. Yeah. The level of play dropping off and the constantness of injuries is certainly something that to factor in. And yes, I agree with you. The investment here in Christian Kirk does close the door on Cooper Kupp, unless they were going to turn into some weird Mike Leach offense where they always put 4 wide receivers on the field. But
like what the Rams did last year.
where
they had Kupp and Puka.
Yeah, Puka can play a little outside, though. He's not some sort of just, slot only guy. Like, Kupp feels very much at this point in his career, slot only. He's expensive. Even if you adjusted the contract, he's still kind of expensive. So now with Kirk, close the door on Kupp. And I don't want to say close the door on a rookie slot receiver, but guys who have more usefulness outside, probably more attractive to the Texans right now than Kirk.
I look at Kirk as two things. I look at this as a two-part combo, and it is SNL. Normally we go live at 4. If you're new to this, please subscribe. We appreciate you. We're just a couple months in. We're a few thousand deep. I have my individual channel. Cody has his. We're always on the scene. We got you covered. 2 biggest voices in town. So we got you covered there. Be sure to subscribe. I look at it 2 ways here. So I think that Christian Kirk provided you with, and DK Metcalf could have done this too, but it would have been a lot more expensive. I think he provides you with the obvious need that you had at wide receiver in the short term. And I also think in the long term, this is, for now, we were talking about Nico and Tank and the pairing and stuff. This is the new wide receiver duo that we're talking about for now, depending on what they draft. Like the life after Tank type of transition is kind of starting with this. You have a guy that you can actually pair. It's not long-term ish, like a few years. Like this can be your wide receiver duo, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, perhaps.
Yeah, I am intrigued to see what the commitment is to Kirk, because they're going to adjust the contract, you would think, and then that probably comes with some more years. So, I mean, is it a 2-year commitment to him this year and next year? Are they going to add another year on to the back end of that? This is like, and you see teams do it. You build out wide receiver rooms. Like, yeah, you have a guy. Nico's the guy. But you build out rooms around that guy, and Kirk's a good piece to have around that guy in that room. And, you still need other guys. You still need an outside presence that you can trust. You still need backups for these guys, but he checks off a box and fills a need that you desperately needed to figure something out. And this is one of the better options. I mean, think about all the different crappy wide receivers we've talked about here in the offseason already. Like, this guy's better than a lot of those guys. And so he fills an immediate need, and you can start sort of, once they figure out exactly how long Kirk's going to be here, okay, Kirk here for 2 seasons. Nico's got his contract. Maybe when we draft a rookie, we think this way. So this is the room for these many years. This veteran's in for 1 year, so we know we got to replace him. Like, you could start to kind of put the storyboard together of the wide receiver room for the next few seasons.
Question I would have is, like, does this make you feel better than if they brought back Diggs?
Yes, because I don't believe they're done. Like, and I feel like they can get a better outside guy than the better outside guy with Kirk than they could have gotten with Diggs.
Does this make you feel better than if they traded for Kupp?
I like Cooper Kupp more than Christian Kirk. The price is certainly like the contract commitment to Cooper Kupp is certainly something that's an unknown quantity amount this now. Hell, it's an unknown quantity for Kirk while we're talking about it until we find out how they adjust it. But Cooper Kupp didn't cost a 7th-round pick next year. Cooper Kupp cost a little bit more than this. So could I, in my wildest dreams, imagine that per dollar and trade cost to get a guy, you get as much production out of Kirk per dollar in cost as you would out of Kupp? Yeah, it could get close.
On the super chat, it is SNL. Andy says, do you think we need a speedster at wide receiver? They need everything at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like, they still, I mean, right now you have 2 wide receivers that you feel good about. Like, the number's gone up from 1 to 2. Outside of that, wide receiver, it does not leave the top 3 needs for me. Maybe it's not as desperate. Maybe it's not as much of a must, like in the short term, and you can be a little bit more flexible, but wide receiver is still, they need everything. They need possession wide receiver. They need speed wide receiver. They need everything at wide receiver. It's still, I think, right there at the top of biggest needs on this team. This is just one extra guy. This is basically like a cancel. This is almost like Tank Dell didn't get hurt. And I quite frankly, Tank Dell before he got hurt might have been a better play than Christian Kirk. Maybe, don't know. Maybe like you could have a toss up when both are healthy, but right now, like this is, and I think the Tank Dell injury kind of snuck up on him when it came to making the Diggs trade, and that trade became more costly. But this is basically like replacing the caliber player that Tank Dell was before he got hurt. So that's where you're at. And let's be honest, last year when you were heading into the season, and this was before Tank Dell's disappointing start and really disappointing season before the Kansas City game when he got hurt, you still felt the need to make the Diggs trade. So that kind of tells you there that even with that type of duo, which is kind of similar to what you have here in the best case scenario, you still felt the need to make a trade. So I still think they need everything at wide receiver.
Oh yeah, I mean they'd be foolish to think they're done. So you need outside guys. You need a backup slot guy for as far as the speed question. I mean, this sort of shifts how you would operate with some of these wide receivers, and some of these wide receivers in the from a rookie standpoint. Like now you're talking about a 4th rounder or 5th rounder that's more of like a straight line guy that you could focus on versus some of these guys at the back of the 1st, top of the 2nd, 3rd round. You could maybe take a day 3 guy with a more narrow skill set than what you were initially looking for before you'd made some sort of investment like this. So it kind of opens up the back part of the draft for them and maybe sort of narrows that early part of the draft when it comes to wide receivers. And somebody in the chat, I did see this. This is kind of funny.
Josh Hines Allen, one of the faces of the franchise, said Kirk to Houston can't be real.
Oh, it's real, baby. It's real and it's spectacular.
I think Kirk's gonna be nice. I think he is gonna be nice. I think he'll be good. Still need. There's a lot left to be done.
Sure.
In the wide receiver room. I do think also, like, we're not talking about this. We're going lower on the depth chart. I think this could be the end of Mechie. I think this could be the end of John Mechie. I mean, they were holding off hope that he was going to be like their slot guy, and I think we can move on from that.
Yeah, John Mechie's not been consistent enough for me to plan on him being a part of the room. I mean, if he's in training camp and somebody's there to beat him out, I can see that, but you can't plan on Mechie or Hutchinson being a part of this wide receiver room.
So the other questions that emerge with the Christian Kirk thing is, how does this impact free agency? Look, you're out of the business that you don't want to be in, and that's the top of the wide receiver market in free agency. It sucks. And quite frankly, Christian Kirk was an example of that. 3 years ago, when Christian Kirk was on the open market and he was looking for that first payday, it was like, man, he's going to get paid way too much. Like it's going to be way too much. Just like Calvin Ridley last year. It happens, and typically these guys are on the market in a short time. Like people are talking about Darius Slayton.
He got 4 years, $72 million.
It was insane. And that's you got to get players at the right price. Not being in a position where you're looking at the top of wide receiver free agency, it's a good place to avoid, to where you can focus on other things.
And it sort of, I mean, it narrows how you can approach things too, because you know where Kirk's playing. Like he has a defined role on this team. You can count on him for the slot wide receiver situation. You don't have to worry about like, can this guy play slot while this guy play? Like it sort of narrows who you'd be chasing as far as free agent wide receivers, if you still want to go add a free agent wide receiver, which
and they will.
They should. They
They 100% will. I wonder also, is this the end of Robert Woods? I mean, they've had a couple of guys who they've just, it almost, I don't want to say they haven't taken the slot position serious, because I know Diggs was lining up in the slot and they line up different guys up. But as far as just having a guy who that's his primary spot and that's where he does work, it's almost been like, well, maybe this guy can turn into it. And now they have a guy who has a really good track record of getting it done, really good track record of handling business there.
Yeah, I would think that Robert Woods' time is finished. Yeah, I'd be surprised if he was back, and I'd be a little sad if he's back, actually.
Jalen Johnson says, I'd really want to see how much money Darius Slayton would cost. Why? For what? To do
Hey,
what?
would you like to know something fun about Christian Kirk and this? Take this for what you like here.
Go ahead.
Graded out as a better Pro Football Focus blocker than Robert Woods in a couple of categories. So,
They'll love that.
Robert Woods is immense strength of blocking.
Evan says I like Kirk better than Woods and Metch. Yeah, I think that's goes without saying. He's got to perform closer to what Tank was. That's what he's got to perform here for this to look like a good trade.
And like, again, I think we've talked about like who can you rely on, and as far as like as you go through this offseason, and certainly when it comes to the wide receiver room, like they're going to rely on this guy. And if he is not a healthy football player, he's missed he missed 9 games this past season for the Jaguars, and he missed 5 games the previous year. If he's not a healthy football player and you're relying on him, and all of a sudden he's hurt again, and your slot wide receiver is not available to you on a week in, week out basis, that's bad. But as you're pointing out, it's a collarbone injury. That's kind of a freak injury for a wide receiver. So it's like it's a knee that drastically affects his production. He should be able to play. And the injury concerns, he was a pretty durable guy prior to the past 2 seasons.
The other thing that I think needs to be taken into account when talking about Texans wide receivers is Nico Collins gets hurt, man.
Yep.
So that's even all the more reason for depth. Nico Collins misses games. Like that's been a pretty consistent part of the Nico Collins experience. That was one of the main talking points when we were talking about, what they should and should not invest in Nico Collins. So we saw him last year. He missed, they were kind of lost. They missed him damn near a month. So they're going to have to figure that out. I do also wonder, we've been kind of trying to figure out what Nick Caley's going to be, how he's going to handle business and all that type of stuff. Like something that both of his offenses do have in common, the offenses he comes through. And immediately we talk about the Patriots and we talk about the Rams and we try to make sense of what he had there and all that. Sometimes it gets a little silly. Like when you're talking about Bobby Slowick and it's like, can Andrew Beck be Kyle Juszczyk or, is Tank Dell going to be Debo? Like you kind of roll your eyes like when you start that. But the slot receiver was a pretty key part of both of those offenses. Now, the back end in New England, it kind of fell off a little bit, but when they were winning, slot receiver was something that they heavily valued and they put a lot of stock in. And we obviously know what they did with the Rams. They've got 3 of them, and they're getting rid of one that was one of the most productive slot receivers in the history of the game until they found another one who's started breaking his records. So that maybe Nick Caley kind of has a high value on slot guys. We talk about, this guy can line up in the slot and all that. This might be kind of a first context clue based on action where we can say, okay, Nick Caley must value this.
I would tell you that for Nick Caley's offense to operate the way he wants it to, you've got to have a slot player that you can trust. And that guy's got to border on being a good football player or just be a good football player, and Kirk can do that. So I would tell you that would be one of those things that if they don't have that, the maximum potential of what Caley can do as an offensive coordinator with his offense is limited, but they have it now with Christian Kirk.
They do have it. And look, it's not as much of a splash as the Stefon Diggs thing, but I think it can end up being something that benefits them more than Stefon Diggs did when we look back at it, and especially when you factor in the cost that it took. I think we can get the same caliber of production with Christian Kirk. And this is what I was saying yesterday with Kirk. Someone asks on the chat, Christopher, do you still go after a big look? If your wide receiver 1 is on the and shout out to Yordi G. If your wide receiver 1 is still on the board at 25, take him. Take him. Stock up on wide receivers. You can't have enough of them. So if they like Golden, if they like Ibuka, if they like one of these wide receivers and it's wide receiver 1 there, this should not, having Christian Kirk should not make you shy away from it. Just like having Nico Collins and Tank Dell last year didn't make you shy away from trading for Diggs. That's basically the situation you're in. You're in whether you think it's a comparable or worse situation, you're in the same situation at wide receiver right now. Really worse because you don't already know what you know about John Mechie, and Noah Brown's no longer here and Robert Woods is on the back end, but they invested heavily in the wide receiver position last year, and they were in, at best, a similar situation with Nico Collins and Tank Dell, and at worst, a worse situation. So they're not going to shy away from trying to get wide receivers because they got Christian Kirk.
With the Igbuka specifically, can he play outside? Can he play inside? He can play both. He played a lot of slot at Ohio State, but a lot of people believe he can play outside. So does it eliminate him?
It's dangerous when you start saying he played a lot of slot at, because I look at that dude that's doing the damn gritty every effing Sunday and making damn near $30 million. And that was what I heard about him when he got drafted in the 20s was all he did. And I'm not saying Ibuka's Jefferson. I'm just saying a lot of times when you just play in the slot, it's because you have a lot of bad mofos that can play on the outside better than you. And I would say that Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison, and Smith, that you're gonna have to get in where you can fit in, because that's kind of what it is. Same thing with Jefferson and Chase. Like, yeah, you got to get in where you got to fit in. So what they did at Ohio State or LSU, I kind of got the PTSD from that with the Jefferson dialogue.
Well, I would caution anybody trying to put Emeka Egbuka in a box. He could, I believe he can win outside. I can believe he can win inside. And again, versatility. Kirk can go outside, Egbuka go inside, and you could give the defense a different look. So I don't believe this eliminates Egbuka by any means. And I don't believe it eliminates the potential for a wide receiver in the first round by any means either.
Yeah, I think it's still a pressing need. I am interested to see what they do when free agency begins. I think that the trenches is where they're gonna start. Obviously, offensive and defensive line, but I still expect them to sign one or two wide receivers and maybe even draft one.
Oh yeah, they've got to add to this wide receiver room because you still need a starter opposite Nico Collins, and that would give you three wide receivers that you can trust. And then it's okay, bringing competition in with late round picks or undrafted guys or very small money guys, and then bringing in that clear cut, this guy is our key backup number 4 wide receiver. You got to do that as well.
It is SNL Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. Shout out to the 4 o'clock crew. That is the normal crew. We went a little bit early today because Christian Kirk, if you're just tuning in, and a lot of you already have your timer set for 4 o'clock, we're already 30 minutes into this, but we're going to get you caught up with everything that went on, bring some new angles, and also hear from you. Christian Kirk is going to be a Houston Texan. We've talked about the desperation at wide receiver. It was actually going to be our show. We were going to talk about the history of Tank Dell, the price of DK Metcalf, what the hell they do, and then boom, they did what was going to be one of those scenarios. They signed Christian Kirk, or bring in Christian Kirk for a 7th round pick. The price was a 7th round pick with the Jags, mainly a slot guy, but a guy that's coming off a torn collarbone, and a guy that I think was the best option when you start comparing him to the other free agents.
Yeah, look, he was set to be a free agent. They kept him from free agency, where it could have been quite the bidding war for his services, because as far as productive slot receivers that were going to be out there in free agency, that were going to be available as true free agents, Kirk was among the best guys that you would have gone out there and considered signing if you were one of these teams that needed them. So I love that they traded that 2026 7th round pick to go and guarantee they get Christian Kirk for a player that was going to get cut. They'll adjust the contract. Maybe it's a, additional years. They'll change the money around however they need. He's set to make, 15, 16 million, whatever. He's not playing for that for the Texans. It's really productive player basically every time he's been healthy. He hadn't been super healthy the past couple of seasons, but even a couple of years ago, 2023, he played in 12 games at 787 yards. Like there have been seasons where the Texans' number 2 wide receiver is not getting to 600 yards. So it's a nice investment. It's a slot receiver for this team. And if he's anything close to 2022 Christian Kirk, man, that's a really fun investment because he was really good in 2022 for the Jaguars.
Yeah, and when they won the division, the Jags, he had a pretty good year there as well. I'm pulling this up And I do wonder, like, you remember when there was a time when, and I think it's kind of like the Lamar Miller philosophy, where whenever a player does well against a coach, the coach just absolutely has to have him.
Oh, yeah.
So D'Amico was the San Francisco DC in 2021, 2022. We're looking this up together. So we're seeing this for the first time together. Against the 49ers, Kirk had 6 catches for 91, and then he had 5 for 39. So D'Amico kind of kept him in check there. 2020, did he have any big games against the 49ers? 10 targets, 7 catches, 76 yards. This was before D'Amico was DC, and then they kept him in check there. So that philosophy is not there. D'Amico probably just likes him. There wasn't like a lot of eating, just solid-ish games, not great games.
Yeah, I think look at it. His time against San Francisco, best year is probably 2018. 3 catches, 85 yards, and a tutty. That's about it. Okay, he had 100 yards in a blowout, but in 2023. So, yeah, so there's not that's good because Bill O'Brien acted like Chris Polk was freaking Ricky Williams against him and felt like he had to have him.
Same, yeah. Lamar Miller too.
Yep, the old Bill O'Brien thing.
So this is better than the Debo possibility too?
Yes, because he's a real wide receiver. Like Debo Samuel is an offensive weapon. He's not a receiver. You've got to figure out ways to use Debo
he's just
Samuel.
a receiver now.
Well, that's a bad way to use Debo Samuel because he's not to be trusted in your typical wide receiver role.
Yeah.
He's not to be trusted.
He's not.
I don't know how many. Now, if you told me, Landry, Cooper Kupp was a 5th next year and they adjusted the contract and made it a little bit easier to digest, I'd go, okay, I would have rather had Cooper Kupp. But I don't know that that's going to be what the going rate is for Cooper Kupp. It seems like he's going to be more expensive, and he's going to cost more than a future 7th round pick. So amongst the guys that have been rumored around options and the cost to go and acquire them, I like Kirk. And I really like the level of investment. I like what he could bring to the table. And it just sort of, it gives you a little bit of breathing room at that wide receiver spot, because if you had to go into free agency trying to find your 2, your 3, your 4 depth guys to push for 5 and 6, it's on top of offensive line help and depth on defense. Like the shopping list gets really long. Inevitably, you can't get everything. So to kind of check this off the list and not have to worry about this in the first few days of free agency, I really do enjoy this move.
I think they're in no position to be trading draft picks, like what we were talking about with DK Metcalf. I think they're in no position to be trading draft picks at the moment. So I'm glad that the draft doesn't get impacted too much. Free agency, a little bit interesting. Andre said Kirk equals Brandon Cooks. Well, they traded a 2nd for Brandon Cooks, and that was a Easterby guy. If he's as productive in his first few years as Brandon Cooks was, then it's a fine trade. I mean, I think you can, like, if that's what he is, that's a fine trade for me. If you can get as much of a weasel as he was and as much of like a cult follower Brandon Cooks was, if you can get Brandon Cooks for a 7th, yeah, I would take that. I know it's not the most popular name, but I would take that.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Cooks had 2,000-yard seasons with 6 touchdowns right out the gate with the Texans. So, I mean, those are on bad football teams and where he's the only guy, so he should have big numbers. But I'll sign up for 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns from Christian Kirk right now, please. Like, if that's an option, I'd like to sign up for it.
What do you know about that no limit? Captain Kirk, can you save me? Captain Kirk, I want to have your baby.
Well, I don't know anything about that.
You know anything about that? Maybe some people in the chat too. I might be dating myself. I think that could be a drop. Kirk's contract right now though, 16.23 milli. So they've got a lot invested in the wide receiver position when you factor this and the Diggs dead money in. Not awesome. But that's where it's at. You got to think they're kind of going to tweak that a little bit.
Yeah, that's going to get exactly the same way I feel like Joe Mixon's contract was adjusted once he got here. I would think that Kirk gets adjusted as well, because you'd want him for – this is a guy that at his age where you could say, hey, we want you here for the next couple of years to be the slot guy. Let's move your money around. Let's get you some guaranteed money as well, because there's no guaranteed money now for Christian Kirk. It's all just $16 million unguaranteed. So, hey, let's get you some guaranteed money. Let's get you here for a couple of years and, just start building a relationship, and you're going to be our slot guy for a couple of seasons here. So
now here's a question I have, and this is something nobody's talking about.
Okay.
Was this who Mixon was talking about? Now, like, was this enough? Was this what Joe Mixon was excited about, or was he reacting to the DK Metcalf? Because it was at the same time. So there is plausible deniability. But was this who Joe Mixon was talking about when he got excited about Nico pairing with somebody?
Does Joe Mixon have any, does he have any history with Christian Kirk? Like, are they from the same town or something?
Nah, I don't know where Christian is. I know that Christian, is he from Arizona? I know he went to A&M. He's in Kyler's class.
He's from Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yeah, he's from Arizona, and he was in Kyler Murray's recruiting class. Mixon's from Cali. So I don't think so. Maybe he just kind of respects his game a little bit.
Were they no, they wouldn't have crossed. Mixon was a year ahead of him.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But do you think it was who he was talking about, or what?
You can't be sending out ominous tweets about Christian Kirk.
Hey,
can you imagine Nico and Christian Kirk?
So is he disappointed now then? If he wasn't talking about him, he's like, oh man,
I don't know.
I wanted DK and we got this guy.
He sends out an anonymous or he sends out a vague tweet once every 3 weeks. So I don't.
Maybe he's disappointed. Dom in Jersey. Shout out to Jersey Shore.
Hey yo.
How come the Texans fans love Fairbairn? He misses so many give me kicks and extra points. Doesn't want to play in the cold. He sucks. Why are you mad? He's mad at Fairbairn now.
On the day of a slot wide receiver acquisition, Dom in New Jersey's over here trying to get rid of Kaimi Fairbairn. What's going on?
Christopher says,
I'll say this. There's a lot of teams that would bend over backwards to have Kaimi be their kicker.
I don't know about bend over backwards. That's a lot.
There's a lot of teams that wish Kaimi was their kicker instead of the guy they had.
So Christopher says,
how about score some touchdowns and you don't have to rely on the kicker as much anymore? How about that? How about we do that for once? How about you throw the ball to a slot receiver that can actually stay healthy, get open? How about we do that? We don't have to worry about Kaimi kicking 40-yard, 50-yard.
Why is Cody defending Kaimi like this, like to the death? What? I didn't know you loved him like this. What's going on here?
I'm not defending him.
You're getting mad. This is
you can't do anything about it. He's the kicker. He's the kicker. You can't do anything about it.
It's pissed off about Kaimi.
You're complaining about something that is unfixable. He's the kicker. Move on.
This is a different vibe than we've been on. You're mad about Fairbairn?
He's the kicker. Move on. It costs more money to cut him than to keep him. Move on. He's the kicker next year. Sorry.
Wow.
How about we stop worrying about the kicker because the team's going to score some touchdowns?
Wow. I can't believe this guy.
I don't know how you consider that to be a defense of Kaimi Fairbairn.
Well, how was it not?
How about you stop putting the kicker on the field? How about you just score?
Like
how about
Johnny
you don't have
Cochran?
one of the worst red zone teams in football?
It's like Johnny Cochran with OJ.
Yeah.
My God. Good Lord. Christopher Thornton, still think we should trade for Cooper Kupp. Maybe that might be his opinion. Hey, the more wide receivers, the better. The more wide receivers, the better. I'm okay. I think Kirk is a multi-year move. Like it's at least a couple years. So if there is like a 1-year type of deal, it might be kind of blemished because of the Stefon Diggs dead cap. But hey, Who knows? I did not know you like Fairbairn. By the way,
dude, I'm telling you right now, I don't give a damn about Kaimi Fairbairn, but you'd be
kicking's
pissed
pretty
if you
important.
had you'd be
Dom
pissed
brought
if you
it
had
up.
if you had a worse field goal kicker. And I'm saying this, how about you just score touchdowns and don't have to worry about the field goal kicker?
He
How
missed
about you don't have to
What about when they have the best?
Well, then go score another touchdown.
What about when they have the best drive of the season and he misses the extra point, so you're not tied and it takes away all the momentum?
Well, then okay. How about you're able to score more than one fucking touchdown? How about that?
Yeah. I didn't know that
How about you don't have the 28th red zone offense in football?
You know what Cody's doing right now that I think is hilarious? That's like one of my least favorite things. Here's what he's doing. Here's what Cody's doing. And this all happened because Dom brought up the Fairbairn thing. He's not the biggest problem. He's not the biggest problem they have. That's exactly what you're doing right now, except you're screaming doing it. Why are you so mad?
You can't fix the kicker problem. It costs money to get rid of him. He's the kicker. Move on.
Yeah, but they're cheap. They're cheap. Like if you find a rookie that you like, you can do it.
So
I don't want to move on.
Well,
I don't want to move on, but I don't like your explanation. No, but your explanation sucks.
It costs more money to move on. You can't. You're not changing the kicker. Move on from the conversation.
Your explanation sucks, though.
Your explanation sucks.
Why do you like Fairbairn so much?
I don't like Kaimi Fairbairn, but it costs more money. I would rather keep the money than actually have to worry about.
You've said, why don't you
move the fuck on? How about that?
Okay, so you're not. So we're not going to talk about Shaq Mason or Titus Howard. Doesn't it cost some money to get rid of them?
No, it doesn't cost you salary cap space, dumbass. Jesus, how hard is that for you to understand?
Are you mad at me or Dom?
It costs you cap space to cut the kicker. Don't do that. That's bad football.
All right, what about the guards? Chase brings up a good question. What about the guards? We need you to calm down. So let's talk about offensive guards. We don't even need to talk about receivers.
Oh, shut up. Why don't you just act logical for 1 minute?
What did I do? I'm not even the one who brought up Fairbairn.
Good Lord.
That was Dom who brought that. I didn't even bring up the kicker. I'm happy with the Christian Kirk move. I like the Kirk move. You're mad at me for what? I didn't even bring him up. I just didn't know you were such a big fan.
Yeah, I got a fucking jersey. I'm going to go put it on. Shut up. God, you're an idiot sometimes. Cut the kicker. Well, it costs you money to cut the kicker.
And now I'm getting blamed.
They're cheap.
Look at Gerald. Gerald is saying, I'm always with Cody, but I'm always with Cody. Well, that's an interesting thing to do. That's not, I don't even think he would recommend that. But damn, Cody, stop letting Landry get you going. What did I do? I didn't even bring up the kicker. He was yelling before I said a word. I don't know why I'm getting blamed for this.
Jeez.
Just relax, Cody.
Let's just go get some kicker off the street. Like, you want Matt Amendola back?
Bo, thank you very much, man. On a day we get a solid slot, we're stuck on kicker. WTF. I
said
apologize.
that. I
apologize
said that.
for Cody.
And then you kept going about the kicker.
I apologize for Cody.
I apologize for Landry being a dumbass.
Cody needs that
high-grade marijuana called Kush on the streets,
says Ricardo. I agree. So back to the receivers. So what does your dream wide receiver room look like here? What does your dream wide receiver room look like now that there's Nico Collins and there's Christian Kirk? What is like? Give me your dream wide receiver room, and don't yell at people.
I'm trying to figure out who I want as that other outside guy opposite Nico. There's not a free agent that I don't.
Well, the thing is that
like Devontae Adams would be awesome. I just don't think they're going to.
Yeah,
it's too expensive.
Well, the thing is that there's going to be a secondary market with guys. Like, are you going to say would DeAndre Hopkins look bad here? Are you over that?
I don't have any interest in that.
Okay, yeah, I could move on from that too. Are we going rookie wide receiver?
Well, I mean, I'd like Luther Burden. I'd be in on that.
That's a second round pick, right?
The Missouri wide receiver. I don't know if Luther Burden's going to be a late first round guy or an early second round guy.
I think he might be on the board when they draft in the second.
Well, then I'd run the card up and I'd have. See, there's not a guy that outside of Devontae Adams from like an actually like I'm willing to pay the price kind of conversation, there's not a guy that's like awesome that you can stick opposite Nico. Like there really isn't. It's not Amari Cooper. He's awful.
What about Amari Cooper 1 year, $8 million?
I'm out. I don't believe
like what the Chiefs did. The Chiefs, they signed someone, they drafted someone, and then
I'd rather give the job to a rookie.
They signed Hollywood like late. So no go at all. Amari, you talk about can't stay healthy. He's the face of it.
Well, I got no interest in Amari Cooper. I got no interest in DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, Chris Godwin, his success comes from the slot, and he's expensive, so that's not really a fit. Like, Devontae's really the only free agent, so I'm really kind of leaning towards a rookie at this point.
He's going to Seattle, right?
If they actually trade Metcalf, that initial ask didn't really make it seem like they were trying to trade Metcalf.
That seemed like an aim high type of joint, for sure. We're getting a lot of names. There's a lot of Madden being played. I'm
fine. I'm still fine with Igbukah. I mean, you put him opposite.
Yeah, I don't think that Christian Kirk should stop you from taking Igbukah if you like him. Like the Rams were able to, when given the opportunity, to make it work with 2 slot guys, really 3, because they used Whittington too. So I mean, like it's not like if you have 2 slot, having 2 slot guys is not like having 2 left tackles, or it's there's a lot of stuff you can do. There's a lot of stuff you can figure out.
I almost wonder if, like, as opposed to just getting like an awesome player opposite Nico and having 3 really good players, could I interest you in just having like Kirk, Nico, a veteran outside guy, and then a rookie that can do a little bit of inside and outside? It's like you have 4 guys that you can rely on as opposed to just 3.
I also think the market kind of speaks too, and this is I just think it's kind of weird how there seems to be like an assumption that you can find, and you can to a certain point, but like whenever there's not a top end quarterback, like we know it. Like it's like, oh, you accept it and you say, okay, we're not going to be able to get a quarterback in this draft. But sometimes that's the case with wide receivers, and sometimes that's the case with other positions. So I also think like getting Kirk here, it kind of speaks to where they are in the draft and where the market is, and you don't flat out avoid it, but you at least minimize the dependency on having to get it done.
Sure, and if you start putting guys in, whatever Caserio calls them, sections or quadrants or whatever groups, and then it allows you to be a little bit more comfortable with a different group of guys further down the board. Because you have, boom, 2 veterans, Nico Collins, Christian Kirk. You got those 2 guys settled. Maybe you add a veteran via free agency. I'd still be interested in DeMarcus Robinson being a part of this team. Like, not as like the starter opposite Nico Collins, but as your 4 or 5 wide receiver.
Here's my question, like when we talk about the layout of this, and shout out to everyone in the chat. It is SNL, Andrew Locker, Cody Stoots. We're about 800 deep right now. We anticipate these types of crowds as this thing grows and during free agency as well. Subscribe to our individual channels as well. But SNL, Cody, put the link in for them so they can go ahead and subscribe for being here. A lot of you already are subscribed, but just go ahead and subscribe for us. Do us a favor. But here's the question I want to ask. Do you think, like, if we're looking at the Texans depth chart of wide receivers and we're going from top to bottom, do you think that Christian Kirk is closer to the Tank Dell, or do you think he's closer to like the Woods Mechie? Because I'm seeing a lot of stuff in the chat where it's like Christian Kirk, I'd rather have him than Woods or Mechie, and you compared the blocking, and I'm like, okay, if he is close to Woods or Mechie, then this is a terrible move.
Oh no, he's closer.
He's got to be way closer to Tank.
He's much closer to Tank Dell. This is a guy that 2 years ago had 1,000 yards. I mean, Christian Kirk's a very productive football player when he's healthy. Very productive football player. 65 yards per game. It's about what he brings to the table. in his good years and healthy years in Jacksonville. So he's much closer to Tank Dell than he is the Woods Mechis of the world.
I do wonder though, like, while
now, if he's your second best wide receiver, you don't have a very good wide receiver room.
No, unless it's just incredibly deep, which I think was the case with Tank Dell this year. And it might have been a Bobby thing, but Tank Dell wasn't producing like a good number 2 wide receiver as soon as Diggs went down. I mean, it goes without, like, he was non-existent five games at least. So yeah, I do agree with that. I do wonder though, like when we talk about the impact of the draft, so I don't think it should prevent you from drafting a wide receiver. Like, if you like Ibuka, if you like Golden, if something crazy happens and there's a name down there that we don't.
Well, yeah. Herman asked the question, and I think, for me, if Tet McMillan from Arizona fell to you,
yeah, you're obsessed with him.
Give me Tet McMillan.
Yeah, he's right up there with Fairbairn. But yeah, but McMillan, yes.
Well, sorry you don't stay up and watch college football. I watch a lot of Arizona football.
Okay, I'll watch more
than
you.
Sorry you don't watch a lot of college football. That's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Herman asks, who don't want to see fall? Tet McMillan.
I would not be opposed to that. But I do think that if it does maybe make them more likely to take, like, maybe be more open to taking someone like another skill position guy. Like, if, let's say, Colston Loveland falls and Ibuka fall, I could see them leaning more towards Loveland with Kirk on the roster than without Kirk on the roster. I don't think it's like complete long-term plans, but I could easily see them doing that, because while Kirk is going to be part of things next year, he doesn't completely eliminate the possibility of you drafting a wide receiver in the first round this year or next. Schultz isn't going to be here. So depending on what Stover becomes and Loveland, I do think you could kind of lean that way. And they might be even more open to taking a running back too.
Sure. I mean, like I like your theory that it opens up tight end a little bit more for them, because they've got the idea of adding a big time playmaker at tight end is just, it'd be really fun for this team. And now you got a slot guy, you got Nico on the outside. I mean, I'd be very intrigued by Colston Loveland.
Now, do we say goodbye to Stefon Diggs? Bye-bye.
There's too many different things stacking up against Stefon Diggs. Other teams might want to pay him too much money. He's coming off of a knee injury that's going to keep him from participating in some of the offseason activities. He's getting sued, or he's suing people or something. He's all over TMZ. There's too much. I'm good.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
If there was one of these things,
no.
Maybe.
If it were Stefon Diggs 4 years ago, yes. It almost seems like there's more now than there was 4 years ago. Like 4 years ago, it was just like, hey, the locker room, he wants to change. Now it's like Cardi B pregnancies, and this girl says he did that, and he says he did that, and this guy says he did that, and all that. It's almost like there's more stuff now that he's older. It's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, I would say bye-bye to Diggs. I was good on that to begin with. I'm there.
And if some guy who has the production and history of a guy like Tutu Atwell can make $10 million, some team out there is going to pay Stefon Diggs more than the Texans would be comfortable paying him. So I would tell you that also plays a heavy factor in the end of Stefon Diggs.
Oscar's text says, what about if Marquise Brown gets released? He signed a 1-year deal, didn't he?
So Hollywood is a free agent.
Yeah, he's a free agent. Kansas City wants him. They didn't really get what they wanted out of him, which kind of surprised me. He ended up getting hurt, but Hollywood and Christian, let's just bring the band together. Let's go with the Arizona Cardinals. Let's just take all the former Arizona Cardinals and let's do it.
Well, Kyler had a pretty good couple first years.
Yeah, he likes throwing the ball to him. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. The wide receiver room is still very thin, but it's much better than it was. Much better than it was. And Cody he's calmed down from the Fairbairn thing.
Yeah, it's because you were being stupid.
Nah, Dom was
like,
being stupid. Dom was being stupid.
Go get a kicker. Swear at them. They're cheap.
Dom said that.
They're
You
cheap.
can't get them. Full disclosure, this is a drink right here. This is my drink. I got my colonoscopy tomorrow. This is drink 1 of the colonoscopy.
So you have to drink this to get you cleared out, or you have to drink this so
I've been on a liquid diet the last 2 days. I was going to do this anyways. I did the Dana White 24 hours water, and then I'm doing 24 hours water and 2 things of bone broth, which is disgusting. And then I'm going to do this too, and then I have to drink the other one. I don't know what it tastes like though.
Can you put salt in the bone broth, or does it just you just have to that? Well, the face does not make. Oh no, it does. Oh no.
What in the hell is in that? It just looked clear, so it looked like water. Oh my god!
Was it like a powder that you had to mix up, or
dude?
Or it
it's
was
like drinking straight rubbing alcohol and like,
wait, no, I haven't.
Chlorine and
I've drank some chlorine water on accident. He's like, I gotta finish it, health and all. Yeah.
oh.
That did not look good. You're not a make a face guy after a bad drink.
All right, so it's so
it's a pre-made liquid. I thought you mixed it into water. No, it's
no. You got to take this one and then you got to take the other one tomorrow.
Ew.
It's sodium sulfate, potassium sulfate, and magnesium sulfate oral solution.
Oh, buddy. I hope you got a new roll of Charmin.
That's the goal.
I hope
so. I got the.
I hope you got a new roll of Charmin, buddy.
Damn. That's it. So we'll figure that out. But yeah, so
you gonna be headed to the bathroom like me after Taco Bell 4 a.m.
So we got the tomorrow at the procedures at 1:30, shows at 4. We'll figure out what to do. I would say maybe we could just go Lopez rules.
I'm afraid to even ask what that means.
I just show up. If I show up, I show up. If I show up 30 minutes late, then hey, what's up? Like you want to go Lopez rules?
Yeah, we'll go
season time. It is the time for that for you to show up late for shows.
Yeah,
but I will prep. I'm not going to go full Lopez rules.
So you're not going to come in and say Jackson Hawes, tight end from Georgia Tech, first round.
No. I'm not going to say Cade Stover might be a first round pick and all this. I'll still prep. So prepping is not optional. The prep will be as usual, per usual. It won't be like a 2-hour window, maybe. But will I show up or will I not? Maybe we just FaceTime in.
I think the folks find out at 4:00 tomorrow is I think what happens.
Yeah, because the danger of recording now, like there was a little window where maybe you could record. Now, if we would have recorded today, Christian Kirk gets signed and all of a sudden it's just a throwaway.
You know what I saw when I was going through Twitter while we're on the show just to make sure, contract terms don't get announced or some other move doesn't happen. And poor Seth, he tweeted out, good to see the Texans traded for Christian Kirk as I just finished a Cooper Kupp video.
Yeah. No, I did a video this morning about DK Metcalf, and I also localized Max Crosby and Joe Tunney.
Are you pissed they didn't trade for him?
For who?
Thuney?
No. I mean, I know they know him pretty well, but nah. I mean, it wouldn't suck, but the localized for me is a couple things. First of all, that's how the Bears spend offensive line money. They bring in one of the most respected guys in the league. They don't trade for Shaq Mason and then give Titus Howard extension. So, that's kind of their approach with their rookie quarterback, which I think is cool. That's a good approach. Mm-hmm. But did you see Brugler's tweet, Dane Brugler's tweet?
No, what did he say?
So he said that He said that part of the reason the Bears wanted Tunney is because they felt like their offensive line didn't only lack talent, but it lacked leadership.
Oh.
And I wonder what do the Texans think of theirs?
Oh, you don't think that Laramie's a good leader?
I don't know. That was something that they said that they valued.
Landry, I don't know if you've heard this offseason, there's going to be one voice in the offensive line room, and that one voice is going to solve everything. One voice. Because apparently it was like a detention classroom last year. Titus had his headphones on. Laramie didn't show up. Nobody's listening to Mr. Strausser. You got Shaq Mason shooting spitballs in the back of Juice Scruggs' head. Like, it's detention in there. But now one voice. Offensive line room is set. They got a leader. It's Cole Popovich.
Cole Popovich, okay.
Dante Scarnecchia Jr., baby.
Damn, that was a nasty drink. Yeah, Dante. Yeah,
So you can have any liquids you want, or is it you have to just have water?
No, I went on the 72-hour cleanse of Dana White's. I was going to do it on Monday, and I was like, well, if I do it on Monday and then I have to drink liquids before, I'm basically doing a Beyonce cleanse where it's like insanely stupid. So I did all liquids yesterday. I've had one bone broth today, and tomorrow it's going to be more of the same. And then I'm going to try to just take this reset and try to be a little healthier.
No, so
they're going to clean the colon. Maybe they'll find something in there.
You don't
clean
want
out some softballs
in there. That's bad.
Well, I mean, if it happens, it happens. It's a maybe. I'm not guaranteeing it. I'm saying maybe they find something in there and cut it out. I think they kind of clean it out, so we'll be good. The drink sucks. I don't like getting up and having to do that. Like, I'm supposed to drink it at 6 a.m. I'm not gonna be able to go back to sleep.
You're gonna be about 10 pounds lighter when this is all said and done.
It's the goal, man. Cleanse and get ready. Back to reality.
What's the mess my gut up meal after you've had all this done?
Nah, I'm gonna make some adjustments. I'm gonna I've really dove into like eating fast and eating healthy, and I've really like lowered my options now where I've discovered that Jimmy John's has unwitches, which is lettuce sandwiches, and that Jersey Mike's has bowls, which is a game changer for me.
I love a shredded lettuce bowl, you know.
Jersey Mike's. Why don't you ever eat Jersey Mike's bowls?
I just feel like I could probably make that at home.
Not like them, dude.
I can't ever get the oil and vinegar ratio correct. Although if I'm trying to eat good, I probably shouldn't have the oil. I could do the vinegar though.
Jay asks, weren't Mixon and Hollywood together at Oklahoma? I don't think so. I think that Mixon kind of missed that. Yeah, I think Mixon was more like Landry Jones era type of stuff. Hollywood was with Baker and Kyler.
Yeah, because Mixon was in the NFL in 2017.
Yeah, so no.
And Hollywood was in. They met. Yeah, I don't think so. So 2014 to 2016. Yeah, Hollywood was at College of the Canyons in 2016. So he was at a JUCO in 2016.
Rich Boy asks, this is random. This is more random. Be careful, Rich Boy. Cody might start yelling at you with the questions.
I'll go
just yelled at one of our viewers about a kicker question, but
because it's a dumb thing to be pissed about because it's not changing.
Doing it again. Have you guys talked about the stadium situation? I move it to the burbs. Honestly, just take it out of Houston. Move it to the burbs. Whatever burb works better. Move it to the burbs.
So
Houston doesn't deserve it at this point.
The new team president was on Texans radio the other day, and I listened, so y'all don't have to.
Yeah, I listened too.
And
what were your thoughts? I talked about him on the stream. What were your thoughts?
My initial thoughts were if they want a new stadium, that's the perfect guy to go and get it.
Yeah. He's pretty sharp, man. Like, I think you have to have a certain level of full of shit to be like in one of those positions. I don't say that disrespectfully. I just think it's you have to kind of be on and you have to be fake at times. He came across as pretty authentic for the position. He does have like a real like endearing to kind of goofy laugh that kind of comes out of nowhere that I kind of enjoy. But yeah, they're definitely getting a new stadium. It's a wrap.
Well, the renovation project that he was associated with that he brought up is one of the more notable renovation projects ever in European soccer. It's when Real Madrid renovated their stadium that was created in 1947. So, and they spent almost $2 billion when it was all said and done renovating it. So if that's the cost to renovate a stadium that's that old and modernize it and things like that, but he didn't really, the stuff he talked about as well was like getting into the stadium easier. And that's not the stadium renovation. That's the area around the stadium. And that's hard to do something with.
Yeah. I think Houston's just kind of screwed up with he also said going and staying for a long time. And I'm sorry, I know the tailgating's cool, but like sitting around a cooler with a few beers, I can get down like that and a grill going, but like you got to have a little bit more around the stadium that brings to hang out and be around. And you look at Maine and you look at Kirby, like there's nowhere to chill. There's nowhere to hang out. Like it's all chain restaurants and chain fast food spots. So they just don't deserve it. Like put it in Katy, put it in a burb. They're still the Houston Texans. There's plenty of examples of teams that are in burbs. Just go ahead and do it because downtown Houston, the logistics of driving there are absolute ass. And the job that they've done, keeping the Astrodome up there and everything, just move on. That's really my quota when it comes to the stadium.
Yeah, it feels like it'd be $1 billion to put in the stadium and $1 billion around there to just even get it close to where it need to be. So I don't know. We'll see.
It's a good question from Son. With all this new stadium talk, it makes you wonder where Cody was when Brian Cushing was drafted.
I'm going to just go find the clip, like a 15-second explainer clip, and I'll just have that on the ready, and then I'll just play that when somebody asked that. I was on the second floor of the Grove Apartments in Lubbock, Texas, watching the draft with Landry, and he spiked my drink and got me drunk.
Spiked your drink.
Spiked my drink and got me drunk.
That was Blue Balls Punch. It clearly said Blue Balls Punch. To the right of the Blue Balls Punch, there was some Get Some Grape. And then we had some Jell-O shots, and we had some Hurricane 40s, a keg, and every bottle of tequila you can imagine, including the biggest bottle of Patron, biggest bottle of Grey Goose. Shout out to the Wayne's lady for looking out for me and always giving me that free for the price of $40. Thank you. Shout out to the Wayne's lady. I think she ended up getting fired, but hey.
Can't imagine why.
Hey. Wasn't me, man.
Can't imagine why.
All right. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Subscribe, like, right along. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Christian Kirk, a Texan.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Except don't ask him about Kaimi Fairbairn. He gets a little mad about that.